Hey, we're live, guys. We're live. I'm Jeff with eBay Addicts, and today my special guest is called My Amazon Hustle. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people in the chat and the people that are watching the replay if they don't know who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Fabian. I'm originally from New Jersey. I now live in Southwest Florida, and I've been doing Amazon for the last 4 years. I went full-time about 1.5 years ago. So my main source of income is from Amazon, but I also do eBay and I do Facebook Marketplace, kind of whatever I can get my hands on locally. So that's pretty much what I spend my time doing.
Okay, awesome. So you sell on eBay and Amazon, and then you said you also sell like on Facebook Marketplace. You sell other things as well?
Yeah, so initially everything that I purchase, I want to try to flip it on Amazon because that's kind of my main source of income. But if I can't do it on Amazon, I'll look on eBay. If it sells on eBay, great, depending on what the fees are. Sometimes I'll flip it on Facebook Marketplace and try to save on those fees. But like you said, I was watching your last video today. There's definitely many ways of making money. You just got to get out there and you got to look, because if you don't look, it's not coming to you, you know?
Yeah, for sure. You just got to get out there and hustle. Like the title of your channel is called The Hustle. So you just got to get out and hustle and look for it. So so tell me, man, how long have you been a reseller now? So you said you've been full-time for about 1.5 years now, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've been kind of like dabbling in reselling for years. Back in Jersey, I mean, I was working for Home Depot at the time as a department supervisor, and I was kind of like trying to do side gigs like that. So I dabbled in eBay a little bit, made some money there, kind of just to throw in the savings or have backup money. So that kind of worked out. And then I started a YouTube channel years ago. This is years back. I started a YouTube channel. It got or what I consider to be somewhat popular, and I was doing technology reviews. It took me about 5 years to build it up, but I was able to get it to the point where companies were reaching out to me for me to do reviews on their products. So that kind of worked out, and then that's similar in terms of reselling, because I was getting their products for free. I was doing the video and the review, and then I was keeping the product in turn. So then I would take that product and resell it. So I always dabbled in reselling, but it wasn't until like we came down here that I was like, there's got to be another way. There's got to be something I can do where I can start something from nothing, And I was just kind of over my job at the time, and I was like, let me give it a try. Let's see if there's something there. So I started dabbling in books, and I started doing that thing and kind of going from thrift store to thrift store and here, there, and everywhere. And I stuck with it, and eventually it turned into a full-time gig, and I was able to leave my job after 15 years. So it worked out.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to say hi to Wendy is in the chat. She lives in Florida as well. So, hey, Wendy, thanks for coming by and hanging out. If you guys have questions for our guests, drop it in the chat. So I got some questions for you. What were you doing before you became a full-time reseller? Like, what was your traditional 9-to-5 job that you were doing before you
I worked with for Home Depot. I started working with Home Depot, the retail store, back in New Jersey about 15 years ago, and I was servicing the contractors. They pretty much bring in their blueprints if they needed doors, windows, whatever their material lists were, and I would kind of get them the best pricing and delivery and all that stuff. So I moved up throughout the company, and I was able to kind of take over that department, and I ran it for years. And it just kind of got to the point where I was kind of doing that, chasing and not really getting anywhere. I was swimming, and I was trying, and I was pushing, but I wasn't getting where I was looking to go. And that's when I decided, I said, there's got to be a way. And I started watching YouTube, and I started coming across all these resellers, and they're doing stuff on eBay, there's flipping stuff on Amazon, and I was like, that could be me. But if I don't go for it, I'll never know. I didn't want to not do it and then wonder what if. So I'm glad I did, because now I work for myself. This is my full-time gig, and it's just really me, and the family helps out here and there, but it's really just it's my thing. So far it's working out well, and hopefully we look to the future and we look to grow. So
okay, awesome. So you were working this job. I'm not going to call it a dead end job, but you were working this job. You weren't happy with what you're doing. You were like, hey, I'm going to watch some YouTube videos, check out what some other guys are doing. And you saw all what kind of profits they were making working as a full-time reseller. So you're like, hey, I'm going to try this out. But you had to build up your inventory to a certain point on eBay and Amazon before you just quit your job and did it full-time, correct? You want to talk a little bit about how that transition was?
Well, that's the thing. I started this business with the last $500 I had in my savings account, and my wife looked at me and she's like, "Man," she's like, "I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know if that's going to work. Maybe you shouldn't." I said, I think I'm onto something. Let me try. So the first month went by, and I was going out on the weekends and after work and kind of sourcing and trying to see what I could find. The first month, because I was building my inventory and all the fees that go along with doing the cost of doing business, I was actually under. I was negative $500 the first month, right around there, 4 and change. So at the end of the 30 days, she's like, "Well, great, you took $500. You're in the negative. You're not even making money." So she wasn't too enthusiastic about it, right? So the next month came around. I said, "Listen," I said, "that's just kind of how it goes, the cost of doing business. You got to build something out of nothing. There's costs involved. So I know what I'm talking about." The next month came around and I broke even. I made the $500 back that I had put into the business. So then she goes, "Okay, cool. So it took you 2 months to make back what you put in. Great. You're onto something." So she kind of giggled it off. The next month came around, did the same thing. I stuck with it. I was consistent. Every day after work, on the weekends, I was hustling. I was putting in 80 hours a week between my regular job and doing this on the side. So my profit was $1,500 on the third month. And that's when she was convinced. She was like, you might be onto something. Long story short, about a year and a half went by. Same thing every day, being consistent, going out, sourcing, finding stuff, being listing it, sending it in, and here we are a year and a half later. So it's been about a year and a half since I left my full-time job, and it's scary when you make that leap, because you don't know, that's the life I was used to. So I didn't know that leap, but it had to be done. I took it, and I'm glad I did, because I've never gone back.
So how do you know when you're ready? Like, if you've been doing it part-time and you want to be full-time, like, how do you know when you're ready? Do you have like 2 or 3 tips that would help somebody to know if they're ready to say, hey, you know what, I don't think me working this full-time job is what I want to do? Do you have any recommendations?
So when you get to the point where you can consistently cover your bills from your profits that you're pulling, or whatever reselling business you're doing, and have extra money to play with, that's when you're ready. So I was kind of right on that ledge. I was covering all my bills, but I had enough money to roll back into the business, but not as much as I would have, as I felt comfortable with, right?
Right.
But it was time. I was done. I didn't want to be there anymore. I wasn't there, and I thought, if I could just dedicate myself 40 hours a week, 100% into my business, my numbers will double. And that's exactly what happened. In a matter of 30 days, when I left my full-time job of constantly sourcing, constantly listing, constantly sending stuff in, my numbers doubled within the first 30 days, and they've gone up since then. So as long as you can cover your bills and have some extra play money to roll back into inventory, I would say, you can comfortably do it without any issues.
Well, how much would you recommend somebody reinvest back into their business? Like, if they're not at the point, they still have their full-time job, they're doing it part-time, what percentage should they reinvest back into their business to buy more inventory? Because if anyone's going to ask me, I would say all of it. I would just because if you already have a full-time job and you're already paying your bills, and you want your side gig to grow to be your full-time gig, you need to reinvest a good portion of that back into your business, correct?
Right. So I agree with you 100%. If you can reinvest the maximum amount possible, that would be ideal. But it's not always the situation, right? So when I started, I didn't have the ability to reinvest everything back because I kind of had put out money to get started. And then, there's additional costs, there's software, there's the fees that you get from Amazon and your subscription and everything in between. But so like what I did was when I started, my goal was to take $50 a week and use that as my sourcing funds, right? What can I buy with $50 and turn that into profit? As I transitioned further in, a year in, I was up to $100 a week. Now I'm spending about $1,000 a week on inventory, right? And that's kind of how it goes. The more you build it, the more you roll into it, the more you're going to put out to keep growing. But that's what was comfortable for me at the time and what worked for me without me financially hurting, if that makes sense. I was able to cover my bills. I was able to take care of my family, and I was able to roll back into the business and continue to escalate or continue to grow. But that's kind of what worked for me at the time. That's kind of how it works. As you grow and you get bigger, you're going to put more money out over and over and over again. The wheels are turning, and you're chasing that wheel, right? How fast can you get it to go?
Oh, yeah. So basically, even if you don't have a ton of money to start out with, like you said, you just started off with $50 a week and was like, hey, I'm going to keep reinvesting it. Now I'm at $100 a week. And then maybe it grew to $200. And now you said now you're at like $1,000 where you can just show up, pay $1,000 for some merchandise, and then go home, sort through it, list it, box it up, and ship it into Amazon FBA. Yeah. I wanted to catch some people in the chat real quick. We got a bunch of people in the chat. I wanted to say hi to Butterfly Hustles. Thank you for coming by. We appreciate you. We have the Flippin' Accountant is here hanging out. We got Drew from Profit Monsters is here. Hope you're doing well, man. I just sent you a message on Instagram, so I hope you're having a good weekend. We got Wendy here. She says all of it. We have the themed reseller says great stuff. And I miss my buddy John was here hanging out from Flippin' Ain't Easy. So if you guys have questions for our guests, drop it in the chat. Justin says, what are your favorite kind of items to sell on Amazon? He said, I saw that you had stacks of DVDs and video games. So he wants to know what all items you sell on Amazon. And can you give us some type of information about it? Because the thing is, when someone first starts selling on Amazon, they're gated in categories like DVDs and media items and things like that. So could you explain a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, so in terms of what I do and what I sell, I figured out I was able to sell media by mistake. Because when I started, I was selling books. I started the same way everyone else did. That's the only open category for every reseller out there. And as you build your account, you'll be able to get unrestricted in other categories, right? So what happened to me was I had opened my account 2 years prior to when I actually started taking it seriously and started doing what I've been talking about. But when I started, I was under the impression, like everybody else, I'm restricted in every category, right? So I went out and I tried doing RA, and everybody wants to check out the Legos, and everybody wants to get the Nikes, and so on and so forth, all the big brands, right? So I'm restricted in everything. So I'm like, all right, I guess we're gonna stick to books, right? And so I dug deep, put my head down, I grinded, and I did the books. One day I'm in a thrift store here locally, and I see a DVD that kind of stood out to me, and I was like, oh, that's kind of like it's got to be rare because I've never seen one, right? So of that particular one. And so I go to scan it, and with my Amazon app, I scan it with my Amazon app. It comes up, and I thought it was weird that it didn't show restricted on there. So I'm like, that's funny. How is that not restricted? Everybody talks about media being a restricted category. So that's when it hit me. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I opened my account 2 years prior So that was like 2014, 2015. And that's when I realized I had been grandfathered into that category. And so when I realized that, I was like, that's it. I'm going for it, you know? So I completely turned my business model from just books at the time. And I was doing books, electronics, and whatever video games I could get my hands on. And so the reason I turned to media is because media is a restricted category. There's not as much competition, and it's cheap to buy, right? So everything I sell is secondhand, pre-owned. I don't sell anything new because Amazon is really, really restrictive with that kind of stuff, especially if you don't have a direct supplier. So I sell everything pre-owned. So far, so good. I'm not going to, I don't want to curse myself, but that's kind of how it got into the media. So I'll sell anything, but the bulk of my business is media. So that includes audio CDs, DVD, electronics, books. So those are my top 5 of what I sell, but I will get my hands on anything. So as far as getting unrestricted, I guess with like the bigger brands, it's as simple as just finding a wholesaler, getting purchasing directly from them, utilizing that invoice to get unrestricted. Like if you're looking for Nike or Adidas or whatever brand you're looking into, it's not, there's nothing secretive about it. That's what you got to do. I noticed that with my account in particular, same thing. As I started selling and the more I sold, the higher my numbers got. Same situation. I'm out in the store one day and I'm thinking, and this is actually not too long ago, probably about a year ago. I go to scan some Adidas shoes, same thing. Not showing restricted. I was, what? And I actually thought it was a glitch because that happens with Amazon. It glitches out and sometimes it unrestricts everyone in the same category, even people that shouldn't be unrestricted. That wasn't the case. So I kind of figured out that as you sell, the more you sell, the more velocity you're selling, the more transactions you have, the more stability you become as a seller. You prove to Amazon that you're legitimate, you're not selling garbage, and that you're a reputable seller. And ever since then, I've got all the big brands, Lego, Adidas, Nike, all the big stuff that everybody looks to get, Starbucks, all those big brands. But consistency, that's really the only thing I could say. You got to stay consistent, because a lot of people that don't stay consistent don't make it in this business.
All right, awesome. Now I wanted to talk a little bit about you said you were talking before the show started today that you recently bought like a big bulk purchase of like 2,000 media items like DVDs and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about your strategy as how that works? Because first of all, a lot of people don't even know you can sell used items on Amazon. And 2 is they don't see a lot of profit in it. Like, they see a used DVD and they're like, oh, that might be worth 50 cents, 75 cents, $1. They don't know that there's profit in some of these items. So could you talk a little bit about your business strategy?
Yeah. So in terms of profitability, so the profitability in terms of used items, that's the thing. That's the misconception, is that people don't realize how much profit there is in used items. As I was, same thing. When I started or before I started, I didn't know that you could sell used products on Amazon. In fact, I didn't even know that there were other sellers selling on Amazon. I thought when I bought from Amazon, I was getting that product from Amazon, not a third party. In terms of like bulk purchases and stuff like that, I was before the pandemic hit in our area, I was getting consistent loads of bulk media. And that's kind of the only real way to scale the business and continue to grow. Because if you have to cherry pick and constantly drive around the state, and I was covering most of the state at one time, it's hard to scale, because the more you send into Amazon, and it's consistent in terms of the sales that come through. And then it comes to a point where you're chasing just replenishing your product rather than scaling your business. So in terms of like books or media, if you can do bulk, that would be ideal. That'll be the only way you'll be able to scale or expand the people that you have in place to do your sourcing or your listing, so that there's multiple things going on at the same time. That's the only way you're going to be able to scale. But in an ideal world, hopefully at some point I'll be able to get back to that. I'd like to get a larger warehouse space. I'm working on getting a supply of consistent bulk media. On average, again, I'm happy with pulling 200 good pieces out of a Gaylord, and there's about 1,500 pieces in a Gaylord. So there's a lot of waste. And so what I'm looking for as a used media seller is I'm looking for the stuff that is out of print, the stuff that is rare. Same like video game collectors, they're looking for older, more rare stuff. And that's really the stuff that sells. So on average, you know, every sale is going to be about $10 to $15, right? And so my profit margins on pretty much everything I sell is about 40% when it comes to media, because I'm not putting out much to purchase that media. It's just kind of like the only hard part about it is the logistics and kind of the grind of having to scan through every single piece that you purchase to find essentially the gold. So it becomes, you know, it becomes the same thing over and over again, just like a 9 to 5, but you're working for yourself. And so the only real way that I could say for you to scale would be to go bulk, because other than that, it's real difficult.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably the biggest problem that I have is maybe I'll go to a thrift store or I'll go to a pawn shop and I'll say, hey, like they'll have DVDs, for example, brand new in the shrink wrap for 50 cents a piece. But what happens when you buy all of them and you need to go back there next week and they don't have nothing on the shelf for you to buy? So it's kind of like it may take 2, 3, 4 weeks for them to restock their shelves to get new merchandise in. And meanwhile, you're running around looking for inventory that may not even be there. So that's like, it can be frustrating. And like you said, with your illustration of getting, you know, 1,000 or 2,000 items, like I think you said you might get 1,500 or 2,000 items in bulk, and you're looking for rare out of print. Let's say you're looking for out of print DVDs, right? So you would get like an out of print DVD and maybe you'll get 200 of them that are good out of 2,000. So maybe only 10% of them are good. But let's say hypothetically, if you made $10 profit on those 200 of them that you bought, now you're looking at close to $2,000 in profit. But I had a question. How much do you pay up when you buy a big Gaylord, let's say of DVDs or something in bulk? How much money do you think you have tied up individually in these media items? Like maybe 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, a dollar? Like what would you say that you have tied up in it?
Yeah, so they'll vary depending on what supplier you're getting them from. There's a couple suppliers I pay about $200 a pallet. Some other suppliers a little bit more, some a little bit less. But on average, I don't count the entire Gaylord, right? I'm pulling out 200 pieces, give or take, after I change out cases, the cost of resurfacing the disc if it needs to be resurfaced. So on average, I'm going to calculate about $1 a piece. So if I'm putting out $1 for that item and I'm getting back $4 profit, I'll take that all day long. It's worth it to me. Even if I'm making $1 profit throughout time, right, over the course of 6 months, a year, I'm good with that because, again, you're doing volume, right? So the higher you list, the more you send in, the more you sell, the wheels keep turning, and so on and so forth. The process stays the same. But, you know, anywhere from $100 to $300, depending on where the source is coming from, and if, you know, what kind of stuff is it? Is it stuff that's already scanned and picked through by another seller, or is it a buyout from a retail store? It really depends on what I'm getting in that load. But on average, that's what you can count on paying per Gaylord.
What do you do with the other merchandise that is not profitable for you? Like, let's say you bought a Gaylord and there's 1,500 in there, and there's only 200 of them that are good that you can resell and make a decent profit on. What do you do with the other 1,300 that's in that Gaylord of DVDs? Like, what do you do with them?
So going back to kind of having the right people in place, there's plenty of ways you can get rid of the $1,300 pieces that you got left. Me personally, because I'm a one-man show, I will do a quick post on Facebook Marketplace, and I've made contacts with certain people locally in the area where I've got a couple flea market guys that come, and they will take the entire load, right? So I'll get it out of my hair, out of my way. They'll pay me about what I paid for the pallet. So essentially that product that I'm going to turn a profit on is free. Other sellers that are a little bit more have a bigger team on their hands. They'll take their team and they'll have their team divvy up that Gaylord. They'll sell lots of genres for CDs or DVDs, anime or cartoons or kids DVDs, and they'll split it up and list it on eBay. I just don't have that kind of time, nor do I have that manpower. I list it on Facebook. I have them pick it up, take it away, and it makes room for more. Essentially, I'm not putting out much money for my inventory.
You know, I tell people all the time, I have a similar business model as you guys. Like, for example, I picked this up at the Dollar Tree the other day. I paid $1 for this at the Dollar Tree. It's a Blu-ray. It's new in the shrink wrap. Paid $1 for it, and it's selling on eBay right now for $15. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you walk in there and let's say I buy 100 of them, right, and each one you're making, you know, I don't know, $10, $12, $8 profit, and you walked out with 100 of them, you know, I'm not driving all over the city. I'm going to one going to one Dollar Tree. I'm walking out with 100 items, and if I can resell them, let's say you get $8 a piece times 100 that you made profit, right? So then I'm walking out of there with $800 worth of profit in 10 minutes. So and the good thing is, the downside is, if this item doesn't sell and I paid $1 for it, and 6 months down the road, if this item doesn't sell, I can walk right across the street to the pawn shop, and the pawn shop resell these Blu-rays for $3, and they'll give me $1 for it at the pawn shop. So essentially, you have no risk in it. And it's the same way with DVDs. If I go and buy a DVD, let's say for 50 cents, and let's say 3 months, 6 months later, that item doesn't sell, I can walk right across the street to the pawn shop, and they'll give me my 50 cents back. So you essentially have zero risk. And also on eBay, they changed the rules up that now if you're in these select categories of CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, video games, you pay zero insertion fees. So your risk is very, very, very minimal. You're paying, you know, you have maybe $1 tied up in the item. You're selling it for, let's say, $15. You're paying zero insertion fees. And if the item doesn't sell, you can walk across the street and get your money back at any time. You don't even need a receipt. So I'm just like, you have very, very low downside. Anyways, we got a bunch of questions in the chat. I didn't want to ignore the chat. We just been in a conversation. So I wanted to say hi to Red Dark Picker is in the chat. The Flippin' Accountant is here. He has some questions for you. He wanted to know, he said, how has your sales been so far this year? Has it been worse or than last year? Has it been better or worse than last year?
As far as the sales, listen, when the pandemic hit and I'll be honest with you. When I worked at Home Depot, let me just tell you a quick story. I won't go into it too long, but when I worked at Home Depot,
I'll put you on full screen. Go ahead.
One of the contractors that I dealt with was kind of interested in what I did, and he came to me one day and he's like, "Listen, man," he's like, "If you are willing to teach me, I am willing to learn and I'm willing to listen." So, long story short, he kind of listened. He heard me out. I kind of taught him what I knew. And when I left Home Depot, we actually got together and we got a warehouse together and we shared the space. Since then, he's now gone. He moved out to North Carolina, and he's kind of doing his own thing, but he's still doing full time, and he's full time on eBay. He's doing part time on Amazon. But going back to that, when the pandemic hit, him and I were like, well, what are we going to do now? They're shutting down Amazon FBA. That was like 98% of my business was Amazon FBA. I didn't merchant fulfill anything. I thought, you know, I can't send anything in. They're not shipping anything out. They were taking forever to ship things out. I'm like, what am I going to do? You know, like, this is the end for me, I guess, right? I guess not. A little time goes by, not even a couple of days, and sales start coming in from everywhere. And so I thought the last load that I had, I was like, you know, let me list it merchant as you would on eBay, where you list it and kind of hold on to it and then just kind of wait for the sales to come in. And the sales started popping. They started coming in left and right. So I guess it's unfair to say how sales are compared to last year. My sales are up. This is really, truly the first full-time year that I've been on my own. So yeah, my sales are definitely higher than last year. My sales this month are not as high as they were last month, and obviously through Q4, but sales have been consistent nonetheless. And as long as you guys are consistent with sending product in, the sales will come through.
Okay, awesome. A flipping accountant, he says, do you have any employees or do you everything yourself? He says, it seems like you stay pretty busy.
No, like I said earlier, I get some help from the family. Like my kids, I've actually kind of trained them on changing out cases, resurfacing discs. So I guess if you want to call it employees, they're somewhat my employees, and they're very helpful. They make things easier for me. But I am a one-man show. I do everything myself. I source everything myself. I change out cases. That's what I was doing before we started the stream. Resurface discs, whatever it takes. I list everything. I physically look at everything. And the reason I'm looking at each individual disc is because I want to make sure that what I'm sending in to Amazon is 100% authentic. I don't want the case or the possibility of being kind of told that I'm selling inauthentic products, because this category there's fakes everywhere. There's fakes in video games. There's fakes in DVDs, CDs, audiobooks. So I physically look at every specific disc. I know what a fake looks like, and the fakes have gotten much better from when they started doing them years back. But yeah, it's just me, myself, and I. I source it, I recase it, resurface it, I list it, I box it, I ship it. I do the entire process.
Okay, now awesome. I wanted to ask you a question about your warehouse. You said you had a warehouse. Do you rent a warehouse? How big is your warehouse space? When should someone maybe consider getting a warehouse? Like, explain. Like me, I don't know if I don't know if you checked out my channel. I have a shed in my backyard, and I have a big 5-car garage on my property. So I don't think I need a big warehouse at this time. But how big is the warehouse that you guys have? And how do you have it set up? Like, how much do they charge you a month to lease this warehouse? What are the expenses and overhead that goes along with that? Do you mind sharing that with us?
Yeah, no problem. So we were sharing 1,000 square foot space when we were together. We weren't. It's difficult because the warehouse, like a real warehouse around where I'm at, they're a little bit more expensive. And I was looking for like a spot where I'd have somewhat of a dock so the trailers could just kind of pull right up to them and we're able to unload them. But we weren't quite there yet. And I'm kind of glad I didn't get into it, because I think we were splitting the bill. It was about, I think, $1,000 a month. It was so about $1 a square foot, which is actually not bad. The space was good. The company was great. They allowed us to use, pretty much the electricity there, whatever we needed, access to Wi-Fi. So it kind of worked out, and that was all included in the price. But again, once he moved out, and we with the pandemic kind of slowed down in terms of the bulk process, there was really no reason for me to keep that space. So since then, I moved out and I moved into our 2-car garage here. I kind of finished it somewhat. We're in Florida, so I put in a mini split unit here that will keep me cool in the summer. And I set up my space here just like I had over there. So I guess I could do bulk in some way or form, have a couple pallets here and, process them and pull them out. I've seen some media sellers do that. It's not a good long-term choice, though. If you're going to get into bulk, you're going to want to look at getting a space. At one time when we were in there, I actually had purchased more space. I was doing about 8 pallets at a time, so 8 pallets a week or so. And it was going, but right when it started going is when everything else slowed down. So other than that, I really don't know what to say in terms of you're definitely going to need that space.
Eight pallets a week, that's a little over like 1 pallet a day. So you've been hustling. If you think there's 1,500 or 2,000 items in a pallet, and you're going through one pallet a day, that's a lot of work, because you're got to scan all of them individually to see which ones are duds and which ones are good. So it's kind of like, you most of the time, most of your work is scanning the barcodes to try to figure out which ones are good and which ones aren't. But at least you're not standing on your feet at a thrift store or someone, looking through all the barcode. You have it at your house and you can do it at your leisure, right? You there?
Yeah, so that's the benefit, is that you have the product come to you and you're able to save all that driving time, right? When I was doing literally, I was driving the state. My goal every week is to send in at least 400 to 500 pieces to maintain my sales velocity. And so when I don't reach that goal, I don't feel right. I don't feel like I accomplished what I needed. That's kind of the goal for me every week. And when I was chasing the product, driving around store to store, pawn shop to pawn shop, thrift store to thrift store, yard sales, garage sales, everything in between, it was very challenging to be able to get that kind of quantity into the store. I kind of been able to figure out where to go, where not to go. And that comes with time, where there's so I'm able to do that without actually being able to do bulk, but it still keeps me from continuing to scale my business. So now I put in all my time into the business every week, and I'm able to maintain my numbers. I'm able to continue to somewhat grow, but it's at a very, very slow pace. If you have the product already there and it's a good source, you're able to scale and send in much more product much quicker. You'll be able to accomplish a lot more, even with a little bit more overhead. But yeah, if you can go bulk, that's really the way to go, at least in terms of media.
Okay, awesome. I want to catch some people in the chat. We got Thrifting After Work is here hanging out. We got Red Dirt Picker is here hanging out with us. We got Justin, the flipping accountant. Wendy is here. And we had Shane Flippin again is here in the chat. So I missed a bunch of questions in the chat, so we'll try to catch up with them and see what's going on. Wendy asked the question. He says, would new in the shrink wrap DVDs and Blu-rays sell better than the pre-owned ones, or does it matter on Amazon?
Absolutely. So here's the thing, right? Now we're kind of getting into like a portion of Amazon that I don't really enjoy. And so everything that you sell, you have the possibility of getting authenticity claims from customers. You have the possibility of getting infringement claims from other brands. And so that's kind of like the portion of Amazon that's not so much fun, right? And so when you're selling products that are brand new, such as the Blu-ray that you showed that is brand new sealed, if I purchase a DVD or an item that's brand new sealed, such as this one right here, right? So this is from the pickup that I got yesterday. It's brand new sealed, right? And so everyone else would look at this and say, this is brand new, right? So to answer your question quickly, this would sell a lot faster than one that is used pre-owned. However, I will open each one individually, check the disc, and sell this used always, even if it's sealed. And the reason for that is because if I send this item in to Amazon new, and I'm telling you this from experience, and I sell the item new, at any time the customer could say, hey, this was not new. I was sold a used item as new. And so that will hit your account in a negative way. And if you're lucky, it'll fall off in 6 months and you'll be able to continue selling. But there has been situations where sellers such as myself have been deactivated for something that minuscule. So I try to minimize the amount of risk that I take. And for that specific reason, I sell everything pre-owned that I don't have a receipt or an invoice from a reputable retailer or wholesaler to show otherwise.
Yeah, and one thing people don't realize as well, if you sell a lot of media, is they have stuff like maybe you might sell a VHS tape or DVD or Blu-ray, and it has shrink wrap on it, but if someone else resealed it, they put shrink wrap, it's a used item, and they put shrink wrap back on it when they got done with it. And I don't know if you've ever seen, like back in the day, they used to have Blockbuster or Hollywood Video or whatever. They would do that a lot. So the item wasn't new. It was used. It didn't say used across the title, but they put shrink wrap on it. And you walk by and just see something with shrink wrap on it, and you're in a hurry and you think it's new and it's already been used, and they reclosed it and they put shrink wrap on it to make it look pretty. But in reality, it's not new, sealed in the plastic, but you thought that it was. Just like earlier, you were talking about there's a lot of fakes and knockoff brands as well. Wendy had a question. She says, do you need a wholesaler receipt to sell new media? So like when you're on Amazon and you want to get ungated in that category, do you need to have a receipt? Explain the process, because I know you said you kind of got grandfathered in, but to some of us newbies that are new to Amazon and we're not grandfathered in, what's the process that I need to go through to get ungated to sell DVDs, Blu-rays, media items on Amazon? Can you kind of walk through that process a little bit for us?
Yeah. So again, assumptions in that specific question, but as you would with any other brand, I would assume that you would have to get in contact with a reseller or a wholesaler that is authorized by Amazon. And same thing as you would with anything else. You know, you'd order 10 items or more from them and then send in a copy of your invoice to get ungated in that specific category. But in terms of selling anything brand new, if at any point a customer complains or has an issue, Amazon will ask for invoices showing that that item is new. So that happens quite often when you're doing RA. But again, you have a track record, you have a paper trail, you have either a Marshall's receipt or a Walmart receipt or wherever that item came from, you have a paper trail of it. And so if I was to sell this brand new and I sell it and a customer has an issue with it, I don't have a paper trail of where it came from. So I purchased these last night from a personal collection, and that is the reason why I sell everything pre-owned. Again, they are slower sellers, but if you build up your account with enough inventory, it'll get to a point where you're constantly selling and the wheels are constantly turning to make a profit and be able to sustain your finances and be able to continue to scale your business.
Okay, awesome. We have Red Dirt Picker. He says, do you feel that you can profit more on Amazon than eBay and other resale platforms, even with the amount of time spent sourcing, scanning, and listing bulk items?
So for the most part, and I don't think any of us really understand why this is the case, but a lot of times you'll research an item on eBay or a different platform, Mercari, Facebook Marketplace, and for whatever reason, it's worth more on Amazon. And then goes the question of, do people actually pay for that? I'll give you an example. I found a box set of a media box set. It was an anime set that when I scanned it, I said, wow, it's selling for $300. I paid $1 for this set. It was low ranking, and I thought to myself, I don't know how, there was only a few people on the listing. So I thought, maybe it's just elevated. Maybe the price is just, even though the Keep It chart kind of showed possibly around there, maybe not. Anyway, I sent it in, and in just a couple of weeks, I sold it for $300. That same set on eBay was only going for $100 pre-owned. And so for whatever reason, and from when I started till now, almost 98% of the items that I sell on Amazon have more value on Amazon than they do on eBay. And I think it's partially because people can shop on Amazon, at least through my channel, through Fulfillment by Amazon. They can get that item in 2 days guaranteed, sometimes 1 day, depending on where they are in the country. You buy something off of eBay, even with expedited shipping, you're waiting three days plus. And so I think that's kind of the difference as to why things are worth more on Amazon than they are on eBay or any other platform.
Okay, awesome. We got a question from Fort Myers Flippers in the chat. It says, did you get a tax ID right away when you started selling on Amazon? And can you talk about what are some other things that people need? Would you recommend that people maybe use Inventory Lab or Keepa? What are some of the other apps or some of the other things that people can use on Amazon that would help them with reselling on Amazon? I'll put you on full screen again. Go ahead.
Okay, so to answer his question, did I get a tax ID right away when starting with Amazon? The answer is no, because when you start with an account with Amazon, you have two ways of starting. You could start as yourself as a business, or you can start as a actual business with a business name and a tax ID number, so on and so forth. When I started, I wasn't sure if this is what I was going to do, so I started as what they call a sole proprietorship. And at that time, they don't require you to have a tax ID. You just use your social security number. If you're going to start an entity or an actual business with a business name, they will require a tax ID number. And so you'll have to file for that through the government website. And I think it's an easy process, and you can get that rather quickly in just a few days, and it's free, I believe. Okay, so tools. As far as tools, same thing. I've tried them all, and I'm going to share the ones that work, that have been consistent to my process. So as far as listing goes, I use Inventory Labs. I've used other third-party softwares. ScanLister is also a software that does listing rather well if you're going to be doing merchant fulfilling. So if you're listing the item and holding on to the item, it's a good, fast way of listing your products. So I would suggest ScanLister if you're going to merchant fulfill. I've tried AccelerList, and I was not a fan in terms of just kind of how the software worked. Inventory Labs allows you to keep a good system in terms of your inventory and capture all your costs. So all of the software, all of your expenses, right? So your mileage, your cost of goods, your subscriptions for the different softwares that you use. And so Inventory Lab for me is a one-stop shop. I'm able to do everything in one place and kind of keep it centralized, and I know where to go and how to access it. And it just works, you know. It's been great, and I suggest it. I pay $50 a month for that. You're also going to need a repricer. So that is a software that builds into your account, allows the software to, based on the parameters that you set, reprice your inventory so that you are competitive with all the other sellers. I've tried a bunch of them. Reprice It is one of them. It started off great. I had bad experience towards the end. I hear other sellers use BeCool. BeCool is a great repricing tool. It's a little bit, I guess, less expensive than what I pay. There's a lot of others out there that kind of will charge based on how much inventory you have on your account. So the one I use is Repricer Express, and I found that it's like the one that's worked the best for me. They reprice competitively. They win a lot of buy boxes for me. And so my sales are able to stay consistent because of that. In terms of scouting, I use Scoutly for when I'm scanning the products to see what's competitive, what's not. And that kind of keeps me going in terms of, you know, having all the tools that I need to be the business. I think that's really pretty much everything I use. You know, your Dymo and Rollo printers you're going to use, whether you're on eBay or Amazon. You know, and a Bluetooth scanner. I like to use these right here. These are Bluetooth scanners. This is kind of like a finger scanner. And so when I'm listing, it's cordless, it's wireless. I scan it, and it kind of puts the information into the computer, and I'm able to list efficiently that way. So these work well. They're cheap. You can get them on Amazon or eBay for like $40. I know others, you know, there's much more expensive ones, but essentially they all do the same thing. They scan the product, whether you're out in the field or you're here scanning and listing. But that's pretty much it. That's really all the tools you really need to get started.
Okay, awesome. Now, if someone is in the situation you were maybe a couple years ago, where you were working a full-time job, you weren't happy at your current job, you want to try this reselling thing out, what would be your top 2 or 3 tips that you would give to somebody if they're watching right now, or they're watching a replay and they're like, man, I've been working at Lowe's or Home Depot, I've been running around, maybe they've been working as a pizza delivery driver, they're not happy at their current job, they know they can do better, and they want to make a transition, what would be your top 2 or 3 pieces of advice to help somebody if they're like, man, I want to quit my job and I want to do this reselling gig full time? What would be your some of your advice you could give them?
Stop procrastinating, start moving. And I've had people reach out to me and ask me the same question and say, hey, you know, what do I do? How do I get started? And so when I started, I didn't really have much guidance because I didn't really know anybody in the reselling community, but I had YouTube. So YouTube was a huge help for me. I just did research on YouTube. For the first 30 days, I literally would come home every day after work and I would watch YouTube for 4 to 6 hours and just kind of anything on reselling, whether it's Amazon or Mercari or Facebook or whatever it is, eBay. And so I kind of started dabbling in eBay. And when I got comfortable with eBay, I kind of threw myself into Amazon. But that's it. You just got to stop procrastinating and you got to start taking action, because if you don't take action, you're always going to wonder, what if I had, what would have happened had I tried, right? So stop procrastinating, take action. The biggest thing really is stay consistent. You know, I had people reach out and say, hey, you know, I found 50 books. I sent them in and it's been 30 days and I've sold 2 books. And so when I started, I kind of fell into that same rut and I thought, you know, like, what's going on? Why isn't this stuff moving? Why isn't it selling? And so Amazon works a lot like eBay in terms of algorithm, right? And the more consistent and the more activity you stick with and the more active you are, the higher your listings show, right? And so when I had that issue, I kind of was like, I was scared to kind of keep going because I didn't think it was gonna show, it was gonna reflect my work, right? And so you got to stick with it. You got to be consistent. You got to keep feeding the beast. That's kind of what we say amongst us resellers. Amazon is a beast, and you got to keep feeding it as it sells. You got to keep replenishing your inventory. So stay consistent, stop procrastinating, and take action are really the 3 tips I could send off to help people get started.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's the biggest thing, where you just kind of overanalyze, like, what if something happens? What if my account gets suspended? And what if I screw up and make mistakes? And I'm just like, bro, always tell people, like, you're going to make mistakes. That's how you learn, is by screwing up and making mistakes. Nobody, you know, think about when you were learning to ride a bicycle. How many times did you start learning to ride a bicycle and you were trying to take the training wheels off and you fell off and skinned your knee? That's a part of the process, right? That's how you learn how to ride a bike. So you're going to make mistakes. That's a part of the process. Anyways, tell everybody where they can find you at on Instagram so they can come out and check you out. Are you there? Oh, hey, can you hear me? We're losing.
There we go. Yeah. So absolutely. Yep. No, I got you. I got you back. Yeah. You guys can find me on Instagram at My Amazon Hustle. I'm pretty active on there. And that's how I was able to find eBay Addicts. So it was cool to have me on the show. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the questions. You guys had some really good questions for me that kept the conversation going. So I appreciate that.
All right, awesome. I just wanted to say hi to a few guys in the chat. We had the Flippin' Sports guy is here. The Flippin' Accountant was here hanging out with us. We had Flippin' Ain't Easy. We had the Fort Myers Flipper is here. We had Thrifting After Work. Red Dirt Picker is here. Wendy was here hanging out with us. Flippin', Shane Flippin' again. We had a bunch of guys in the chat. So thank everybody in the chat for coming by and hanging out. And give me your final thoughts, and we'll get you out of here.
Yeah, so I had a great time. I appreciate having me on the show. And the one thing I do want to touch on is that when you do go full time, right, the biggest challenge that I've had is working on my own. You know, I came from a retail background, so I was kind of working a lot with other people. So I kind of had to get used to being by myself. And so being by yourself kind of makes you go a little crazy in the sense that you're constantly thinking about everything and you kind of feel lost, right? And so that's kind of where I was able to find help and falling back on other resellers like yourself and people that were in the chat or people that I talk to on Instagram, because we all kind of go through the same thing and we all are there to help each other. And so that's the one thing that I was able to take away from getting started is that people are willing to help if you are willing to learn. So as long as you put a good foot forward and you attempt to show that you're ready to take action, people will help you. Just, it's a matter of reaching out. Just get out there and get it, man. There's money everywhere. You just got to get out there and find it.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys in the chat for hanging out with us today. And I want to thank my guest, my Amazon Hustle, for hanging out. I got his links in the description below. So go by and follow him and come by and ask him questions. He's there if you guys need help. You can pick his brain and ask him questions. He'll be there if you need him. All right, guys, you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl on Sunday. And I'll see you guys on Monday. You guys have a great weekend. Bye, guys.
See ya.